Hi, hello everyone, and welcome back to South After Hours. I'm Crystal Nguyen, your host, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am thrilled to have you back for episode 3. In the last episode, I was joined by friends from UVSA where we explored their VSA experiences and discovered what their Lunar Moon Festival was about. If you haven't listened to it yet, I strongly suggest giving it a listen. In this episode, we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma with Teresa Nguyen and Nathan Nguyen from TU VSA. We'll be enjoying some Taiwanese popcorn chicken while discussing their VSA experiences and their upcoming event in October. Just be on the lookout for that official date on their Instagram. They'll introduce themselves and also tackle our icebreaker question for this episode. Is a hot dog a taco or a sandwich?
Hello, my name is Teresa Nguyen. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm a senior at the University of Tulsa, and I am our VSA's Vice President External. And I think that a hot dog is its own separate thing. I wouldn't call it like a taco or a sandwich, kind of like how like a gyro is like its own separate thing. So I don't think like a hot dog is either one of them.
Interesting take. I think that's the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Nguyen. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm also a senior at the University of Tulsa, and I'm treasurer for our VSA. And Teresa stole my answer. I was telling her before, I thought it was its own unique thing, but she took my answer.
No, I think you had a very compelling argument and stance. That's why I felt the need to come to your side.
I love this relationship dynamic. For me, I feel like I guess it could be both. If you're eating a hot dog, just like straight up, perfect hot dog bun, I guess you could consider it a taco. It does have the carb aspect plus the protein, but the moment that bread splits is when you could consider a sandwich.
Oh.
But at that point, do you eat it like a normal hot dog or
True.
sideways?
Yeah, I've never thought about splitting it in half and how that would change if it's like a taco or a sandwich.
I think it gets far too messy for me, especially if you like putting relish or onions in it, then like the toppings would fall out.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, good icebreaker. So I'll go ahead and start off with some questions. How did you first get into VSA or UVSA South?
I think there was an activities fair, and I was walking around, and then I think Teresa's sister Cecilia was there, maybe, and some other old members, and they like roped me in. They like recognized me from I think high school too, and they roped me in. And then so I've been the treasurer for like it's gonna be like 4 years now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Happy anniversary!
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it was also at our activities fair, which basically is like outdoors on campus, and a bunch of like student organizations have their own booths there and everything. And our VSA was there, and it was like just starting up, so I was like, oh, do I really want to get involved in it? But there was like in a position for social media chair, and my sister was a part of it, and like our friends from our church in Tulsa were a part of it too. And they were like, just apply. Like I was kind of hesitant because I was like, well, it's my freshman year, like maybe I'll give it time, like I'll do it later. But then my sister and the president at the time like pushed me to apply, so I did. So that's how I got involved in VSA. This is my 4th year in VSA now. When I was the social media chair again, and then I was president last year, and now I'm like exploring just different roles. I think our involvement with UVSA South is what pushed me to become our VPX. So the way we got involved with South was we got like a DM whenever I was a freshman on our Instagram, and the DM was from a random person, and it was like, you are invited to like UVSA South Summit Retreat, and I was like, this is a scam, like this is fake, this is not real. But then I send it into our group chat, and they searched it up, and they're like, oh, it's like a legit thing. There's like a whole region of like VSAs, and then there are like other regions for VSAs. And so a couple of our exec went to Summit, and they had a really rewarding experience, and then they encouraged the rest of us to come. So then the next year, more of us came, and then I like fell in love with the experience. And then this past year, like 18 or like 16 of us went, and that was awesome. And then now we're like a partnered school. So it was just seeing how UVSA South fosters such a welcoming environment for other VSAs, and also provides like a safe community for other Vietnamese people, and also people who are just interested in Viet culture. So that's how we got involved in South.
I love that.
Yeah.
I actually also fell in love with South because of the welcoming nature of everyone. In general, South are very kind people that are very like-minded. It is actually crazy that you said like, oh, this could be a scam. That's exactly how I felt whenever I reached out to y'all, actually. I was like, oh, do y'all want to come on this podcast? But I was like, ooh, maybe they think I'm like a con artist. There was one thing I also wanted to touch up on. How long ago was the summit that we reached out to y'all for?
Yeah, that one was 2022. That was 2022 summit was the one that some random person, literally this person like had like no other like photos on their Instagram of any
Yeah.
VSA things, and like I don't think they were even Vietnamese, but they reached out to us, and so that's why we were like so confused about it. But the people who went were Annie Nguyen. She isn't involved in our VSA anymore, but she was the president at the time. And then we had Cecilia Nguyen, who's my sister, and she was the vice president at the time. And then Teresa Din, who was the chief of staff at the time as well. And Teresa Din and Cecilia Nguyen are still involved in South, like programming for like Summit and for Camp Legacy. Yeah.
Actually, the first person I met, I don't know, well, you probably do know them because she's close to your sister Cecilia, she was in my Summit family for Summit 11, I believe.
Okay.
So that was the first time I met someone from Tulsa, and I was like, oh my god, I love this girl, you know?
Aww.
And then I eventually was able to meet Cecilia and Teresa, actually, during...
They're a trio. They're like a trio.
I knew about them, but I never actually got to sit down and get to know them until they came out to one of our events called Winter Getaway last year.
Right.
It was a really rewarding experience. It was a lot more intimate. There was a much smaller group of people, but I think that it made the event a bit more meaningful towards all of us.
Yeah. That's awesome. You got to know the trio. They're just always doing things together.
What is your favorite memory from VSA as a general member and or as an officer?
I'll get back to you on the general member, but as an officer, I forget what event it was, but it was when we rented out an Airbnb and like we did a BBQ at home. And
Yeah, it was Arkansas's external.
Oh, was it their volleyball, their spooky bowl one?
It was their Lunar New Year one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
you know, we all just gathered in that house. It was like really nice spending time with the officers because I don't think we get to bond like that very often.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite memories too, but I think what really stood out to me was this past year's summit, because there were so many of us who went, and like that was the first time we got to do like our own chant, and it was just so nice getting like that exposure, and also everyone being so welcoming to Tulsa. So yeah, I think that was one of my favorite, because there were so many of us who went, and I got a lot closer with people that I wasn't really close with. We had some international students who went too, and I got super close with them. And yeah, I think that was one of probably my favorite memories as an officer. As a general member, we weren't general members. Basically, we were only general members for like a semester before we became officers. But I think I really enjoyed our Moon Festival, which was whenever I was a freshman and not yet an officer. And I think when I saw like the planning process behind it and like what they had to go through to like get funding and like setting up everything, I like was looking at it with such awe at how they were able to plan everything out and like how much money it took to like plan all that stuff out, and it made me want to be a part of it. So I think that was probably my favorite memory during my short time as a general member. Yeah.
During my freshman year, a lot of it is a blur now. It's been too long for me.
Yeah.
It has been a long time. I don't blame you at all. I think it's really cool how you mentioned just kind of being a general member, even just for like a semester, you know, you kind of see the event and you're like, wow, that's really cool. I kind of want to be part of that.
Yeah.
I would say it kind of gives me FOMO, being like, I wish I was like part of the planning process for this. Such an incredible event was pulled off, and I wish I could have been there to really see everything behind the scenes.
Yeah. I agree. I think like another part of that too is that I was like not only in awe of how they were able to like plan everything out, but I also had like my own creative ideas on how I would like maybe next year do this, or like maybe we should have done that instead of this during the event. I was like kind of generating my own ideas as to how they could improve, or like some things that I wish were like different during the event. And so like what better way to like implement those changes than to like join exec. So I think that was like a pivotal like moment for me in my freshman year as a general member. Yeah.
I could definitely relate to that. A lot of the times when I was just a general member with my friends that eventually became officers, anytime we'd go to events, we were like, this was really fun, but I think adding this on would make it even better, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really gratifying and fulfilling to see that we were able to bring our reality to life.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned earlier, Nathan, about just having Korean barbecue, just chilling around. It's those small little moments. It doesn't have to be any grand gestures, for me at least, where you're just kind of able to sit, bond, really get to know people. I would say that those small moments like that, no matter how big or how small it is, I think it's very heartwarming is a good word to put it, and I guess you would hold it near and dear to your heart because it's just a fond memory to look back on. You aren't really focusing too much on doing other events like oh, I'm going to conference, I'm going to these workshops, learning about all these new things. You're kind of just sitting there in the moment, enjoying each other's presence.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, I think last year we made it like a bigger priority for us to like bond as an exec team. And so that was like one of the few moments where we were able to go out of town, go to an Airbnb, but also like attend an external for Arkansas and like take away some like ideas that we had from their event and apply it to like how we go about our events, but also just chill back at the Airbnb and like bond with one another. We had very good conversation. It's basically like a sleepover, you know? So it was, I don't know, that's also a really good memory too. It's like things like that, like just a small little hangout that becomes like a favorite memory for us rather than like going to like a big conference or like going to Summit. Even though those are still like really good and fond memories, I think like the smaller moments like matter a lot too.
I'd have to agree, most definitely. Our next question is there anything you are hoping to gain from y'all's newly found partnership with South? For those that are, I guess, first time learning about this, TU is our most recently added partner school. Major congratulations, we're excited to have you here.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really looking forward to learning how other schools go about planning their externals or planning their events, going about sponsorships, and also how they like foster some sort of welcoming and familial like environment at their VSAs. I recently went on like a president's and ICC retreat, and there I like asked them like, because our VSA is still growing and we don't really typically reach out to sponsors because we're fortunate enough to like receive a lot of funding from our SGA at our school, but there's going to be times where we do have to contact sponsors, and like this year we're gonna have to because they cut a lot on student programming this year. So like what ideas do other schools have to get more funding, or what ideas do they have to like increase member engagement? And those were the questions that I was kind of interested in when I went on the retreat, but also questions that I typically ask throughout my time as an ICC. And that's something that comes along with being a part of UVSA South, like having those different connections and being connected to people who have so many different experiences and learning about their own perspectives and their ideas that they have at their own schools. So I'm more looking forward to how our VSA can create a foundation for other new freshmen to come, and what can we learn from other schools in South to inform what we do like for our VSA in the future.
I agree with learning from other schools. We kind of felt like we were just like in our own isolated community, but being part of UVSA has definitely taught me a lot. Other schools had after sets. I didn't know what that after set was. I didn't know what that was. So that was how I learned about an after set. And the sponsorship thing, I also want to second that. You know, we're having to do a lot of learn about reaching out to sponsors because of the cut funding. And also, I mean, we were kind of restricted before because we couldn't use our funding for like giveaways, but I guess we're leaning in more now because of the cut funding.
So with that being a recent change to this year, how do y'all feel?
Our contact to administration told us to just prepare ourselves for how little we'll get, because they mentioned that because of COVID they were backed up on funds, and so they could give us more funding the past 2 years basically. So we'll probably have to try to use more of the stuff we have in storage. I think that will be a good asset, and of course learning about sponsorships, but then also finding ways to make the event still fun while not buying like everything like we did before. Maybe we'll buy more reusable stuff because of the less funding now.
Yeah.
Instead of, we used to buy a lot of stuff to just throw away, to be honest.
Yeah, we did used to do that, and I think this past year we were trying to like save our money, and then we saved like a lot actually this past year. And so we were hoping that like, oh well, then we'll like use more of our funds next year, because we were very frugal this past year, and now our budget's cut in like way more than half. And so the way we're going about it is, one thing that I was looking into was like a sponsorship packet that other schools have, and so I like asked other ICCs about if they could provide their like sponsorship packet so that we could create our own. And I thought we didn't have to like use it a whole lot, but now it's something that we have to look into and like speed the process on, because we have our first GM next week, and I think our budget for it is like gonna be pretty expensive given how much money we are allotted for the entire year. And people love the food at our events because we try to cater from local Vietnamese restaurants and Asian restaurants, and like we typically have goodies that we like to give out to people. Maybe increase like our fundraisers and stuff, which would be a good thing. I think we could benefit a lot from that, but it's like all new information like every single day. Like we just like learned today that like our budget is cut significantly.
Oh, wow.
And that every single organization on campus is allotted like the same amount no matter how many members like you have. So yeah, it's kind of difficult, but I think we're well equipped to handle it. And then we already were planning on creating a sponsorship packet in the first place, so I think it's just putting us to work now.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had to learn the sponsorship process as well. I was like, oh man, I didn't realize that this much effort was put into receiving fundraising for these events. It is a very difficult process trying to secure sponsorships.
Yeah.
Presenting yourself to them, presenting the case as well, just saying like, hey, this is the event we have going on. This is our goal, our purpose, this is our mission statement, things like that. So it's very important. I know the first time that I learned about it, this was for not this recent camp, but the year before that. It was for South CL7. And it was my very first time staffing for them. So I was very nervous about, just like the sponsorship process.
Yes.
I would say 95% of the time we kind of just email organizations. But this one restaurant that I was trying to receive fundraising from didn't have a portal or an email for me to contact them through. And on their website it says if you want to contact us for sponsorships, you have to set a meeting with one of the managers at the restaurant. So I was like, oh, that is a big deal. That's a lot on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And so I had contacted them. We were able to set a meeting date. But the thing was, I was like really scared and nervous. It was my first time staffing ever. I was on hospitality and registration. I had asked the committee, I was like, hey, would anyone be okay with just kind of sitting with me in a call so that I can practice what I'm going to say to the manager?
Yeah.
And not luckily, I love that team. That team is like one of my favorite teams I've ever worked with. Andy, actually, he was also on Host Reg for this past camp. But he was like, yeah, Crystal, like, I'll help you. I'll sit there. So I had him sit there. I had him act as the manager and ask me questions so that I could kind of think ahead as to what they would ask me instead of brain farting in the moment.
Yeah, it can be very intimidating because like you hope that you can just like send an email and like contact them through like kind of anonymously, like they don't really know your face or they can't like attach like a name to a face. But then sometimes you have to like actually go in person and advocate for yourself, and that can be kind of nerve-wracking because you're just like a college student, But yeah, I think that's something that we have to learn eventually.
Going back to the question earlier, one of the things I do love about having a partnership with South is that you have such amazing partner schools that are more than happy to help lend a helping hand, whether it be just kind of providing support morally or kind of promoting your event, and even to borrowing any of their inventory. So yeah, that's one of the things I do like about South, that they are very giving. They have a very giving nature. Yeah. So now is our intermission. We will kind of just talk about the food. How is it? What do y'all think?
It was good. You can see that Nathan in particular is devouring.
I'm glad you like it. This is one of my easy go-to cooking dishes that I like doing. Whenever I lived alone in Houston, I used to kind of prepare everything in advance, freeze them, and then whenever it came time where I'm like, man, I want some chicken right now, I would just take it out the freezer, defrost it, and just fry like a single portion, because I was living alone at the time. One time, my friends had come over to the apartment, and initially, I was only anticipating one friend to come over. There were like 8 people total that ended up showing up. And I initially bought the chicken to meal prep and to put in the freezer for myself. But then since there were so many, I was like, I'll just cook all of it. And so the entire time I was in my kitchen cooking it up. My friends were watching a movie for 2 hours. And I think they watched maybe another movie. But they were chilling there for a while. And there wasn't any issue with me like cooking for them. I love cooking for people. I feel like one of my love languages. But yeah, the first time I had Taiwanese popcorn chicken was at a boba shop. And man, I actually fell in love. I was like, wow, what has been my whole life? I discovered this in college, really?
At a boba shop?
Yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed the food. But now we'll go ahead and continue our last half of our questions today. For the very first one, it'll be, what is TU's Moon Festival and how has the planning process been so far?
Our Moon Festival is just based on the Harvest Moon Festival or Mid-Autumn Festival celebrated by several East and Southeast Asian countries. For us, it's Tet Tung Tu. But we collaborate with other organizations on campus. So we collaborate with our Asian American Student Association, our Chinese Scholars Student Association, and then sometimes it has been with our Association of International Students. But this past year, we had an organization just get chartered, and it was our Korean Student Association. And so now we're collaborating with them, and so like all of our funds are like coming together into one pool, and so we do that together. And all of our externals have been collaborative events. So even for our Lunar New Year, it's always typically like our ASA and our VSA like doing like spearheading it, but then we get financial support from other organizations. So that's our Moon Festival. It's typically held outside, but this year it's gonna be like half outdoors, half indoors, just because we're having it in October and we're worried about it being too cold and like we can't have it all outdoors because it's going to be too dark too. And also one of our vendors has really pretty like lights and like a really nice sound system, but it's way too expensive. And so we can use like our like performance center and use like their sound system and their stage, and that would like significantly like lower our cost. So that's kind of part of the planning process too. Like we typically split into different committees. So we have like performance, activities. There hasn't been one for funding because we like collaborate with like our student activities board, and they kind of take care of the funding for us. We also have volunteering, marketing, food. Am I missing one? I think I said everything. Yeah. So we have different committees, and like all of our officers are typically in one of them. And we also have like 2 or 3 event leads, and they're typically people like one from each organization who wants to lead it. So that's how we go about the planning process. And we kind of like started conversation over the summer, and then we've been meeting like once a week since then. Yeah.
And I'm on the activities committee, and it's been doing good. We just like have small meetings after like our all planning officers meeting. It's been going pretty smoothly, I think. It's nice that funding is more handled by SAB now, because it used to be a lot of work. I used to do a lot of the logistics for larger events too, since I'm treasurer, and it was a lot of paperwork before, but it's nicer to work on other committees now and see what
Yeah. I think like our Moon Festival is like one of those events where like all our officers can specialize in different committees. Like they're not limited to like our social chairs aren't limited to marketing. Like they can go into like a food committee and like explore different roles and like different areas in which we have to plan events. And so yeah, and each committee has like their own lead too. So there's like a whole like kind of tier system to it. Nathan's our activities committee lead this year, and I'm just working under performances. But yeah, every year like it kind of changes as to who like the leads are, and it's all on like who wants to volunteer. Like there's no like application process to it. But yeah, that's typically how our planning process goes in like our Moon Festival.
So for someone that's never been to Yale's Moon Festival, right? How would you kind of describe what activities really go on, especially as the activities lead? How would you kind of pitch it to them to be like, hey, you should come to our festival?
There's going to be a lot of lawn games for like if you have extra time for the performances or something. After you finish your food, if you get there early, you can go play lawn games. But there's also tables that are going to be more themed for the culture. We're going to try to do clay making and then like lantern making. And then there's like an origami table. We have a lot of ideas, but we're really scared. We haven't been told the funding, of course, but we're hoping to encourage people to go do the activities and give them like a raffle ticket for each activity they do to get entered to get the prizes, and they can also experience the culture. And the main attraction of the event is, I think, is performances, though. I think we have a lot of cool performances lined up this year. I can't tell you what they are right now.
Well, as
maybe
someone,
Teresa can.
as someone in performances, like I can tell you what performances we have. So our VSA does like a fan dance at every cultural event that we have on campus, and that's usually choreographed by me, or like I take inspiration from other schools' dances. And so we are gonna have a fan dance. There's gonna be like a skit that kind of describes like the history of Moon Festival. And then our KSA is trying to do a K-pop dance. We hire performers from who are local to Tulsa, so we have a China like rose dance, and they eat every time. Like they're so good. Like they performed for our Lunar New Year, and they were so mesmerizing. They're like older women, and they're just amazing. And then we have a Hmong group as well called Midnight Blossoms that we're hiring. We have some students as well. One student does kung fu, so she's gonna do kung fu. And then we have potentially one of our VSA members, he went to Summit and he went to Camp Legacy recently. He always like sings and does like some good like dancing.
Is it
Mikey?
Yeah. I remember seeing his performance during camp. I was like,
he performed? Did he do karaoke?
Yes. I believe he sang 2 Michael Bublé songs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you think the one who sang the Michael Bublé song was Paul though? Or was it Mikey?
One of them was singing a Viet song. And
That might have been Mikey singing the Viet song.
Oh, no, it was Paul that was singing the Michael Bublé.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
but yes, both of their performances were really amazing.
Yeah. Mikey puts on a show. Like, he's a good performer. Like,
Yeah.
he gets the
I would
crowd
agree.
involved. He's like, hey, like, sing to this. And, like, he tries to get the crowd, like, interacting and, like, cheering for him. And he's just so good. So, he may be performing. But, yeah, we have a lot of performances lined up. And I'm very excited for it, too. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, he definitely put on a show during camp. He was getting the crowd involved. He was like, everyone clap! And everyone started clapping. It was really fun.
Yeah, we had like a cultural event called International like Extravaganza. It's like all the cultural organizations on campus come together for it, and he performed like on behalf of VSA, and it was like a Vietnamese but also English song, and It's Raining Men was the song, but there was like a Vietnamese version, so half of it was Vietnamese, half of it was English. And then before he said, okay, crowd, when I point the microphone to you, you're going to say these lyrics. And so he sang it, and then the crowd would sing it, and it was so good. It's like on YouTube too. Yeah. So he's just a great performer. Like, he's really good at getting the crowd like excited. So we're excited to potentially have him be a performer for a Moon Festival. Yeah.
I was actually just about to ask about any possible streaming services that y'all stream while the event is going on, or post videos about the performances after for those that are unable to make it, or for those that kind of just want to watch back their performances.
Yeah. We don't have any streaming service during the event, but we do try to post all of the performances after, or if that particular performer wants their own video, like that's the reason why we'll record it, but we may not post it if they don't want to.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. I sadly will not be in town, so I cannot make it to y'all's external. But I will be on the lookout for any possible
of course. We typically like put it on our link tree for a little bit too if people want to watch it. But yeah, we'll definitely post the videos we have.
For our next question, how long has this event been running? And how has it evolved over the past few years?
It really depends, because like we had a VASA, like a Vietnamese American, but we also had a VSA. And the VSA was typically run by Vietnamese international students. I know the VSA was probably chartered longer, but not as long as you might think. It might have been like 2018 or 2017 when they were chartered. But then our VASA had a Moon Festival as well. So I think they both held their own separate Moon Festivals. But I don't know how long ago that might have been. I think maybe the first time they did it was like 2018 or 2019, I'm not sure. But it's not super long ago. But I remember my sister attended the very first one, and it was indoors, I think. No. Actually, I have no clue. I have no clue.
That is okay.
Yeah, I think like I'm mixing up Lunar New Year and Moon Festival, but the very first one we went to was our freshman year, and it was outdoors, and it was called the Mid-Autumn Festival, I think was what it was called. And it was just a collaboration with our ASA and our VSA. And it was outdoors, like in this really big grass area. The microphone, like you could not hear like what was being said through the microphone. And then there was like 2 performances, and this was before our VSA did any like fan dances. And yeah, there was not many performances, but there was like a lion dance. But then 2 years ago, we had more performances, but we didn't have a stage, and we didn't have like a proper like mic and speaker system. So then the next year we implemented that, and then we implemented like stage. We had more performances. So I think in terms of performances, it'll be a little more professional. And in terms of activities, like it'll be more organized because it's like indoors. Whereas it was outdoors, so some of the stuff would fly away. Last year we did raffles, but we received funding from the school to be able to do that. But policies have changed and funding has changed, so now we're able to actually like support local businesses and get maybe gift cards from them or something like that to use as raffle prizes. So I think we're starting to evolve to become more like sponsorship based in terms of our activities and like prizes that we do. And also I think we're getting more like local performers too.
I think looking back on previous events is really rewarding for me, kind of comparing how it was the very first time that I experienced it as a member, experiencing it as a staff member, and then eventually like the most recent staffing experience. Just kind of seeing the evolvement of it all, just being like, oh wow, before we used to really struggle with this, but now the people or the audience that we're putting this event together for, they really enjoy this aspect. So it really shows how much hard work that you put into the thought process of making these improvements.
Yeah, I agree.
We always do pros and cons for all our events.
Yeah, we do. And improvements. And like, what can we do to improve next year or next time?
Yeah, I really love pros and delta meetings, or just debrief meetings.
Yes.
It's very fun to kind of be like, wow, the event is actually over. And then you really reflect on how you were while you were planning it versus how the event ran during the actual event.
Yeah, and I think that another thing about like having those meetings is that some of your misunderstandings can be cleared up too.
Yeah.
So sometimes like you may think like you were probably very frustrated about something that happened during the event. They're like, why didn't anyone do this, or why couldn't we do this, or why did it turn out this way? And then later on someone will be like, oh, this happened because blah 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 blah, like it's not your fault, like that's not in your control. And I think that it ends up bringing a lot of ease and like some closure too, because there's some things that like happened at like our Lunar New Year like 2 years ago, like not this past year but the last year, where some people were like frustrated with like maybe the sound system, but then after like talking about it in our debrief, we like realized, oh, someone like an administrator accidentally like switched some things up with the sound system, that's why it wasn't really functioning the moment that like our event started. And then that provided like some closure, and then also encouraged us to like find solutions as to how we avoid maybe going about that administrator or going about the way we do our sound systems for the future. But that's just like an example, but I really appreciate when we do like the pros, cons, improvements, deltas, and all that stuff, because we can't just like do it and then not reflect on what we like learn, you know? So especially if like some people played like a pivotal role in some of those events, like we can't just like discard that. We need to like acknowledge that like there's a lot of things that we did well, but there's also things that we could change. But regardless, we're like acknowledging and like appreciating the work that everyone's done, even if there's a lot of bad things that have happened too. Yeah.
For our final question of the night, what are you personally most excited for about this event?
I'm kind of excited to see how we'll manage the budget. I know I keep talking about budget. I don't know. I just keep thinking about my role.
Yeah.
All this budget slashing is really making me nervous. And the rest of my committee keeps talking about how the event leads told us to try to stay under 100. We're already over 100 on what we want to do. And I was seeing if we can pull off the same extent with like less of a budget, because that's kind of setting a precedent for the future, because this will probably be the budget we'll have to work with in the future, because we're past like the COVID era. And there probably, hopefully, won't be another pandemic as big that will build up another budget like that. So how we handle this event will definitely set how we're handling the future events too, and how we spend the money.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially because like we got very fortunate these past few years with having like very large budgets for our events, and like thinking that, oh, next year we'll just get more money because like, you know, inflation, and like obviously everything's going to be charged more, and like the university sees like how successful these events are and how much it gets TU students to be involved, but not only them but the community to be involved. Like we're on like local Tulsa news like headlines, and Fox 23 News like comes and like they interview like our event leads. So it's not just only really big for like the TU community, but like the Tulsa community at large. And so we're under the impression that like we will be able to get more funding every year because they see it, but unfortunately student programming as a whole, like at TU, like budget got cut like a lot. And so I think that's a good point, that like we can't just like hope that like we'll receive the money every single year, but find different ways to go about how we receive the money, or whether that be like more sponsorships or cutting down on certain things. And that may result in like maybe less people coming to our event, but like I hope it doesn't, you know. I hope we do this event justice, and even if it doesn't live to like everybody's expectations, I think that's the whole part of like growth and like trying to adapt to like different changes in policies. So I think that's a good point. I didn't really think about that one, but personally for me, I'm excited about the new venue that we're using, because typically we do it outside, and like that's put a lot of strain on like budget for decorating outside. Weather changes, maybe like if it's like too cold, like people probably don't want to stay for too long, or if it's like gonna rain that day, like you're gonna have to move it indoors. So I think eventually we're gonna have to move it indoors at some point. And the venue that we're using, like it's still at TU, and it's actually right in front of the old venue that like we use, but they have like a professional like sound system, and it's all like TU provided. Like, they take care of everything, and they have like really good microphones and like speakers, and like they have really nice lights that they shine on the stage. So we've never like utilized it for any of our events, but I think it's about time that like we do. And as someone like working in the performances, like I'm really excited to see how we can utilize their space to put on like really nice performances. And I think one thing that like is a little concerning is that people can't bring like food into the auditorium, which people want to eat while they watch the performances, especially if the performances are taking a long time. But I'm just excited to see how aesthetically, how did the performances look on the new stage. So yeah, I'm more excited about that. And also, I can't forget, I'm so excited about people coming to our external, like people from South coming. Because we did have people from like OU come to like our events before, or from Arkansas, but this time it's like there's like more of a push or obligation for like people to want to come to all the way up to Tulsa. And I already had people texting me from like my Summit fan. They're like, when's your guys' external? Like I plan on like coming up. And so if there's like more of an obligation or like willingness to go, so I'm really excited to see like how many people actually show up to this Moon Festival.
I'm very excited for y'all, and I'm excited to see the performances online. Yeah, I would have to agree with kind of being involved with other people in the South community at least. I know for Summit, Camp, or even UNAPSA, people that were in my family, I was like, I want to go to this external just so I can see them, you know? And then they would do the same for me. Like, so for UNAPSA, they also have a conference. And this was not this past conference, but the year before that, one of my family members, he's from NorCal. And so I was sending it in the chat. I was like, hey, y'all, this is Camp. It's my first time staffing. I really think y'all should come back to the South. And he was like, I'll think about it. And now he's been back to the South for like the past 3 events. So yeah, I think it really does help build a sense of community. And as you were mentioning, Nathan, I think that you have a really good point with kind of saying that this event, especially after the budget cut, really does set a standard, I would say. I think that y'all's optimism is going to be a really key factor in kind of allowing this to take its course, you know. I feel like, as you were mentioning, how Fox 24 covers...
Fox 23.
Oh, sorry. Oh, man, I was one off. Fox 23, sorry. I'm so sorry. Fox 23 covers y'all's events, as well as just kind of a lot of other local people coming out to support you as well. I think that y'all's optimism in seeing, like, the end result of the event is to bring community together. So I'm hoping that the school does provide y'all additional budgeting. Or in the future, other vendors or sponsors are open to supporting y'all in your future events as well. Man, Fox 24.
It's a lot of officer talk, but I also want to say, from like an attendee point of view, I want to say I'm excited for the skit, because we usually try to put in comedy. I think it's a funny skit usually. And I was asked today to act in it.
Yes, he will be in the skit, Yeah,
I hope that goes well and it's fun.
Do you know your role in the skit?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably just fill whatever is needed.
Will the skit be uploaded on YouTube as well, or no?
It will be. I think it will be, I think we already have 2 of our officers, Nathan included, being a part of the skit. I think we only need like a couple people, so... Yeah, it'll be good. We try to put, like Nathan said, some humor into it. It is informative at the same time, but it's still funny. So yeah, I'm excited to like coordinate that as well.
I'm excited for y'all. And that concludes our 3rd episode of South After Hours. A big thank you to Teresa and Nathan for coming out and sharing y'all's stories. Best of luck to TU VSA, and we hope you'll come out to support their event in October. For more details about their Moon Festival, be sure to check out their Instagram at VSA_U Tulsa or contact an officer. We've got many more exciting externals coming up soon, so be sure to support our partner schools in their hard efforts to make these events happen. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and remember to stay happy and healthy, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!